Hey guys, welcome back. Today we'll be doing a beginner flow. So kind of an easier version of all the other videos, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's nice to take it easy sometimes. And kind of just going over like some basic things, a little warrior, and just some poses that we see in social media and like what we think of when we think of yoga. So let's do that, get comfy, and let's get started. Sitting down, bringing our knees wider than our hips. Let's close our eyes and sit back into our sits bones. Bringing our ears in line with our shoulders. So a lot of the times we sit forward with our head forward, posture. So let's try to bring that back. It might feel a little funny, a little tuck of the chin. And feel those slight activation of our core muscles here. And tuning in to our body. Feeling our points of connection with the mat. And why is this important? Well, it's important to feel our body in the space around us, especially if we're feeling a little overwhelmed or stressed or not grounded. And so sometimes it's nice to tune in to those points, literally, when we're walking, feeling our full foot press against the earth, that connection with our environment. And same thing with becoming present on the mat, is feeling that connection, our body with the floor, and how we can ground down a little bit deeper here. So let those points sink, growing our roots into the mat, coming out of all parts of our body and visualizing that, growing into the ground. Taking a deep breath for ourselves here today, the deepest that we've taken all day. Beautiful. Let's open our eyes, give our cat or dog a little pet, and bring our arms all the way up to the ceiling, dropping the shoulders from our ears. So if we have to widen our arms here, beautiful. Just drop them, sitting back. And on our next breath, let's twist to the right. Bring our left hand to our right knee, pressing into that hand, pressing into the right fingertips, looking over the shoulder. Beautiful. On our next breath, let's bring ourselves back up through center, bringing the arms up. Again, keep our arms open wide. We're creating space in our neck and our shoulders. Beautiful. Twisting to the left now. Bring our right hand to our left knee, pressing into that knee to find a deeper twist, and pressing into the left fingertips to keep both hips grounded. On our next breath, let's come back up through center and release our hands down, heart to our heart, Anjali Mudra. Take one breath here. Feel that connection with your thumbs to the center. And release. Let's bring the soles of our feet together, bringing our heels in close to our pelvis. Now we see this pose a lot in yoga, just because it's a great hip opener, and a lot of times we're starting up here. This is where we're at, and that's okay. A lot of people's hips are tight. It takes a long time to get your hips to stretch, but it's important to do it because we hold a lot of tension here, a lot of emotion, and it's good to just get a release. So coming here, wherever we are, if the hips are extremely tight, bring some pillows under here. Prop those suckers up. Get your cat. Put it right under here and get those knees just to relax. Let's interlace our fingers around our toes, sit up tall in our spine. And let's slowly start to hinge at our waist here. Keeping that chest lifted forward. All the way, it might not be a big forward fold here, but tuning into that part of our body that we are stretching, the lower back, the inner thighs. And once we can't go any further, let's release our toes, bring our hands in front of us, and drop our head. Finding a little movement by swaying back and forth, maybe fingertipping our fingers forward. One more breath here. And let's start to walk ourselves back up, coming all the way up, grabbing behind our knees, pulling our knees into our body, and extending our legs out in front of us. Sitting up tall here, coming to our Dandasana or staff pose. Surprisingly, this takes a lot of muscle. So give yourself a break here. It's okay if it's difficult or it hurts. Yes, Ballbird, hello. And just let's tune into those muscles. So we're activating the toes towards the ceiling. Back body, leg ignition. Sitting up tall, slight core activation here. And let's just pause here, feeling those sits bones on the mat. On our next breath, let's inhale the arms all the way up. Still keeping those toes activated. We're using those quads. And releasing that right hand to the mat, pressing into the mat and arching the left over the body. Side body stretch. Twisting the gaze and the chest up towards the ceiling. Beautiful. Releasing back to center. And let's release that left hand to the mat. Pressing into the mat and arching the right over the body. Peel that chest up and over. One more breath here. Coming back up through center. Take a deep breath here and start to hinge at the hips. That same thing we were doing in our bound ankle with our feet together, but now our legs are extended, so we're getting deep into the hamstrings. One more breath, holding ourselves up over the legs. And release, coming to our toes, our ankles, or our calves. We can even bring our hands to the side. Let's arch into our spine and drop our head to our knees. And you know what? Again, we might be right here. Hamstrings are tight. So, and it takes a minute to get them to lengthen. So give yourself, again, a little break. You came here today for your body, but if we're here, that's beautiful. Keep working on bringing our body closer to our legs.
One more breath. And let's release, rolling our spine up, crossing at our ankles, and let's roll over our knees, coming to our tabletop. There are a lot of tabletops in yoga, so let's talk about it. Bringing our shoulders over our wrists, bringing our hips over our knees, feeling our back flat like a table, spreading wide in our hands. And if we claw down with our fingertips, we can release some pressure in our wrists. So tuning into that. And the next breath, let's drop our belly, arching our spine and looking up at the ceiling. Cow. Pretty much in almost every yoga class, they're going to be like, let's do some cat-cows. Why? It feels good for the spine. And it's a great way to start bringing stretch into the front body and then also into the back body, curling the spine up towards the ceiling and dropping the head. Play with this, going at our own pace, slowing down today. Trying to be a cat here in our cat pose, envisioning a kitty. And then dropping our belly, envisioning a cow. Moo. On our next breath, let's come back to neutral spine. Just bringing our back to flat. Tucking our toes, and let's start to hover our knees, pressing into our palms. Shoulders are still over the wrist. We are having a slight core engagement here. Hover. And on our next breath, let's continue to straighten our leg, bringing that tail up towards the ceiling and dropping our head, coming to our first dog of the day. So let's walk our dog, bending into one knee and the other. Downward dogs too. When you think of yoga, downward dogs, right? And like this should be a relaxing pose, and sometimes it's not, right? We're working our strength while also stretching, which can be hard. But at some point, downward dog should be a feeling of coming home at the end of a day. That relaxing feeling. Beautiful. On our next breath, let's find stillness. And inhale, lift the right leg. Keep those toes pointed to the mat. Let's work on pressing the left heel down while lifting that left heel up or right heel up. Beautiful. One more breath here. Bending into that knee, and let's bring it all the way through, stepping through our hands, finding our low lunge. Knee over ankle, we're equally pressing into both hands. And on our next breath, let's press into the feet, bring our hands up to our heart center, and lift ourselves up. What do you want attention? Coming up to our high lunge. Here we are. Let's drop those shoulders. We have strength in our legs. Sinking in that front line, but we can still see our big front toe. Our knees still over our ankle. On our next breath, let's rotate that back foot down and back. Knife edge of the foot or pinky side of the foot will be to the long edge of the mat. And let's bring our hands to our hips. So we might have to step our back foot in to keep our hips square. And what does that mean, square to the front? That means our headlights of our hips are facing the front of the mat. So finding that for ourselves. And once we found our Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1, let's inhale, lift the arms up, and sink into that front leg. Again, keep those shoulders away from the ears. If we have to have a wide arm, that's okay. Looking up. We are strong. We are warriors. Breathe here. And on our next breath, Let's open up the body to the long edge of the mat. Slight movement here, but now we're moving our hips to the long edge. You can see that rotation here. Woo! Extending the arms out long, coming to warrior two. Keeping that knee over ankle. It's going to want to fold in or out. We want to pull it over the ankle. Looking over those right fingertips. Beautiful. Feeling the strength of that leg. Inhale, let's trace the left arm down the left leg. Exhale, arch the right over the body, humble warrior. One more breath. Inhale, coming back up through warrior two. Rotating our hips to the front, warrior one. So feel that transition. Beautiful. Inhale, bring those hands down to heart center. Exhale, coming back up into those left toes. And let's release our hands, framing that right foot, pressing into our palm, stepping back to our plank. Couple options here. We can stay here up on our toes, or always drop down to our knees. This works fine too. I'll stay on our knees, but if you have done chaturangas before, feel free to stay in your plank. On our next breath, we're going to keep the elbows in towards the body and start to release ourselves all the way down, dropping our legs and pulling our chest through to cobra. Pausing here, pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, opening up the chest. We might have a slight bend in our elbows, that's fine. One more breath. Let's tuck our toes, lower ourselves all the way back down, and press back up through plank to our downward dog. Beautiful. Walking out our dog, or always find a child's pose. Taking a couple breaths here. Wonderful. On our next inhale, let's lift that left leg, keeping the toes pointed down towards the mat. Working that right heel down and the left heel up. Equally pressing into both hands. Wonderful. Let's bend into that left knee, bringing it all the way through and stepping through our hands. Left foot in between the hands here. Low lunge, knee over ankle. Perfect. Beautiful. Let's press into both feet. Inhale those hands up to heart center and exhale, lifting the body, high lunge. Finding our lunge here. Equally pressing into both feet. Dropping those shoulders. Releasing any tension we're holding in our forehead. Beautiful. Now, let's start to rotate, small movement here, to that back, or that back foot to the back side of the mat. Keeping our hips square so we can drop our hands to our hips. Stepping that back foot in if we need. Really pulling that right hip to the front and also keeping that knee over ankle. Once we've found our pose, Virabhadrasana 1 or Warrior 1, let's release our hands all the way up, sinking in our warrior. Finding our point of focus on the front, on the floor, on the wall in front of us. One more breath here. And let's start to transition. Windmilling that right arm up and back, opening the hips up to the long edge of the mat. Beautiful, Warrior 2. Again, keeping that knee, it's going to want to go in or out. Let's keep it right above that ankle. Pressing equally into the feet. Lifting those arms out long. And looking over the left fingers. Lifting that chest. Beautiful. Finding our breath, not forgetting our breath today. Wonderful. Let's start to trace that right hand down the right leg, lifting that left arm up and over. Humble warrior. Inhale, coming all the way back through our warrior two. Transitioning to our warrior one. So again, if we have to adjust our stance, feeling our hips square to the front of the mat. And rotating up onto those heels, dropping our hands to heart, center, rotating up onto those toes. Lunge and release. Our hands all the way down, pressing into our hands and coming back to our plank. Maybe we want to try plank this time, or we're still on our knees. Wherever we are, shoulders over wrist, slight tuck in the tummy. And let's lower all the way down and through to Chaturanga Cobra. Breathe here. Beautiful. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat. Let's bring our knees wide, press into our hands, and come all the way back to a much needed child's pose, dropping our head and sinking our hips to heels. On our next breath, let's start to walk our hands in towards our body, sitting back on our heels, coming to one side or the other, and extending those legs out long. Coming back to that Dandasana or staff pose. Inhale, activating those toes towards the ceiling. Exhale, bringing those hands out in front of us and slowly rolling all the way down. Activating the core here. All the way until we can get our head to the mat. Let's inhale both knees into the chest. Give our back a little rock here. Let's keep that right knee in towards the chest. Extend out with the left. And cross the right over the left side of the body, twisting in our spine, extending out with the right hands. Little lower back decompression here. Let's just keep both shoulders on the mat. Inhale, bring that knee back to our chest, squeezing the left into the body. Give our lower back a little rock. And extend that right leg out, crossing the left over towards the right, extending out through the left fingertips and twisting. Beautiful. Let's come back up through center. Give ourselves one last little hug here. Knees to nose, nose to knees. Curl up in a little ball. And extend our legs out. Coming to our corpse pose or Shavasana. Bringing our heels a little wider than hips distance apart. Bring the back of the palms to the mat, the ground. And closing our eyes, giving ourselves just a minute here to let practice sink in. It's always important to give ourselves some time to breathe, especially after doing an exercise Or if you just had a long day and you need to lay down just for a minute, tuning back into the breath, the body, and the mind. Letting all of those points of our body sink into the mat. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Yoga Birch. Namaste.